Victoria's restrictions could last for 12 months. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab a stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from news.com.au, which is discussing the potential for Victoria's restrictions to stay for 12 months. I mean, is it even... what's going to happen to the economy there then? Premier Daniel Andrews has revealed Victoria's COVID-19 restrictions could be kept in place for 12 more months if a vaccine isn't developed. Now, is he talking about the insane restrictions of not even being able to travel more than 5 kilometres from your house? Premier Daniel Andrews has announced the restrictions associated with Victoria's state of emergency will be extended and could be in place for the next 12 months. 12 months! If he gets back in, I'll be shocked. Victoria's state of emergency is due to end September 13th. But Mr. Andrews said the state cannot afford to have the restrictions go along with the state of emergency to end. Is he just power hungry, guys? That is the legal instrument that allows rules about face masks, about COVID-safe work plans in workplaces large and small. That is the legal instrument that sits behind density limits in pubs and cafes and restaurants. Things like a positive person, someone who has got the virus, are required to isolate at home, he said. That's the legal instrument which gives them the power to dictate to you how to live your life. Before the 13th of September, we will extend the state of emergency provisions within the Public Health and Wellbeing Act for a maximum of 12 months. See, this is the thing, guys. The government can change the rules whenever they want. They can set the rules, write the rules, and then change them. We've given them the power, the authority, and the sole monopoly on the use of violence and force. So that means it will be a total of 18 months. 6 months we've already been through, plus a further 12 months. Mr. Andrews said it could be that the rules are not needed for the next 12 months, but that the change will be put in place to ensure they can be kept for that period of time if necessary. And they're following the rolling live coverage there. Restrictions will be extended even without a second wave. Premier Daniel Andrews has said the current restrictions in Victoria would need to be extended even if the state didn't experience a second wave. Does he want to win an election? Mr. Andrews said the decision to ask Parliament to allow the restrictions to be extended was about public health and protecting everyone. They will need, but not about protecting people's businesses, not about protecting their livelihoods, not about protecting their mental health. After this video, reach out to a Victorian, guys. They will need to be in place after the September 13th. I wish that wasn't the case, he said. Even if there had not been a second wave, these rules would still need to be in place because there is not a jurisdiction in the world that is going to just be going back to absolute normal. Yeah, this is the new normal, everyone. This is the new normal. Take a knee. Where there are no limits on restaurants, no limits on cafes, no masks at all, no need to isolate if you've actually got this. All of those very common sense provisions will need, when you're beyond the 13th of September. The law doesn't quite provide for that. We want to make a change. Mr. Andrews said, if there isn't a vaccine in 12 months' time, then the restrictions may have to be extended again. We would be in a similar position to now, where we would have to go back to the Parliament. No one is asking for an unlimited 5 years, 10 years run, or forever. 12 months, we think, is appropriate. That is to say it is foreseeable. I hope we are wrong in predicting that we'll still need these rules in 12 months' time. Hopefully, we'll have a vaccine by then. What if we don't? Or what if we have one, and then its effectiveness diminishes? But even then, the vaccine will take time to develop, manufacture, administer, and the efficiency of the vaccine. What is the life cycle of that? Does it protect you for 3 months, 6 months, here, forever, the whole nation of boosters, that sort of thing? So this is nothing more or less than a logical extension in time. Changing the law of the state will ensure it is equal to the challenge the state faces. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this article from Justice Connect regarding how the Victorian government's emergency restrictions on the coronavirus work. So this resource explains the basis for and extent of the Victorian restrictions related to the COVID-19 as of the 21st of August 2020. On the 16th of March 2020, the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews announced a state of emergency had been declared across Victoria to combat the spread of the pandemic. This state of emergency was extended again on the 16th of August and ends at 11:59 on the 13th of September 2020. Further state of emergency declarations may be made for a further period of 4 weeks, up to a total period of 6 months. So here's the question. Are they going and changing the law so they can extend this state of emergency beyond 6 months? On the 2nd of August 2020, the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews declared a state of disaster across Victoria due to the threat to danger to life and property in Victoria as a result of COVID. It ends at 6 p.m. on the 2nd of September 2020. So you've got a state of emergency and a state of disaster. So what is a state of emergency? A state of emergency declaration gives the Victorian Chief Health Officer broad powers to act to eliminate or reduce a serious risk to public health by detaining people, restricting movement, preventing entry to premises, or providing any other directions considered reasonable to protect public health, slow the spread of infection, reduce the pressure on the health system, and minimize the risks of the pandemic. Maybe we need to get a state of emergency declared against socialism. That's a big risk to public health. The state of emergency was declared using never-before-used powers under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008. The powers may be used in conjunction with the public health powers. So what is a state of disaster? A state of disaster declaration gives the Victorian Police Minister broad powers to direct and coordinate the activities of all government agencies and allocate resources necessary to respond to the disaster. The Police Minister may also suspend parts of legislation where it would inhibit the response or recovery to a disaster, take possession of property necessary for responding to a disaster, restrict movement to and from the disaster area, and evacuate people from parts of Victoria except where the person has a monetary interest in the land or has any goods or valuables on that land. People who sustain loss as a result of the minister taking possession of a property may apply for compensation. Can we apply for compensation due to a state of emergency? Can they apply for compensation due to businesses being shut down? The emergency and public health powers under the Act. During a state of emergency, the Chief Health Officer is given broad powers to do whatever is necessary to eliminate or reduce a serious risk to public health from COVID. Emergency powers. These emergency powers allow authorized officers to detain any person or group for as long as reasonably necessary to eliminate or reduce a serious risk to public health. Restrict the movement of any person within Victoria, prevent any person or group from entering Victoria, and give any other direction reasonably necessary to protect public health. In addition to the emergency powers, the Victorian Chief Health Officer may allow authorised officers to exercise certain public health powers where it is necessary to investigate, eliminate, or reduce a risk to public health from COVID-19. The public health powers are very broad and allow authorised officers to do any of the following, if necessary, to do so to eliminate or reduce the risk of public health. Close any premises. So this is what they're using to close the premises. Direct a person or group to enter, not to enter, to remain at, or to leave any particular premises. Without a warrant, enter any premises and search for and seize anything. Request information including names and addresses. Inspect any premises. Require the cleaning or disinfection of any premises. Require the destruction or disposal of anything. Direct the owner or occupier of any premises or any other person to take particular actions. So this is why Victoria really is going under, is getting a real world simulation of living in a socialist utopia, comrades. Who can use the emergency powers during the state of emergency? Only authorized officers appointed by the Victorian Chief Health Officer may exercise the emergency powers and the public health powers. Authorized officers must produce their identity card before exercising a power under the Act, unless it is impractical to do so. If seeking to enter a property, produce their identification card for inspection, and before instructing you to do something, give you a warning that it is against the law not to follow their instructions, unless it is not practical to do so. The Act enables authorized officers to ask Victoria Police for assistance when exercising both the public health powers and the emergency powers. This has happened. Victoria Police has established a coronavirus enforcement squad to enforce gathering and stay-at-home restrictions. Refusing or failing to comply with the direction given under the emergency powers without a reasonable excuse could result in a fine, and could result in being choked and dragged along the street. What restrictions are in place in response to COVID-19? The emergency powers are being used to limit the movement of people in Greater Melbourne by directing people to stay at home and only leave for shopping, for exercise, to attend healthcare, attend specific education or study, to care for the sick, to see your partner, for other specific regions such as moving house, complying with legal obligations, leaving Victoria or Australia, or in an emergency. So you can leave Victoria, can you? All of those of you in the comments that want to leave Victoria, maybe this is your chance. Wear a face mask when they leave home, limit businesses and activities, restrict visitors to hospitals, restrict visitors to aged care and other care facilities, detain anyone who's arrived in Australia from overseas in a hotel for 14 days, and limit the movement of anyone diagnosed with COVID-19 and their close contacts. So, they can, if you've even been in contact with someone, so if you signed up for the COVID app, you've been in contact with someone, you're perfectly fine. They can legally limit your movements. What if you don't comply? Boom, you get a fine. Hey, at least they're not dragging people out of their houses yet, like in New Zealand. Emergency powers are also being used to limit the movement of people outside of Metro Melbourne by directing people to stay at home, wear a face covering, limit gatherings, restrict certain activities and businesses including sport, community services, cafes, shopping and restaurants, religion and ceremony, and entertainment and culture. Requires some people to work and study from home, restrict visitors to hospital, restrict visitors to aged care, detain anyone who's arrived in Australia from overseas, limit the movement of anyone diagnosed with the pandemic and their close contacts. See the linked Victorian Government explanation of further directions. If you're a community organisation, find out how these restrictions impact your organisations and additional restrictions from the federal government. Penalties. Refusing or failing to comply with the self-isolation direction for people diagnosed with the pandemic and close contacts may result in a fine of $4,957. Refusing or failing to comply with the direction given under the emergency powers and public health powers without a reasonable excuse could result in a fine of $1,652 for individuals and $9,913 for businesses. Failing to comply with the rules around face coverings may result in a fine of $200. If you receive a fine, you may choose to seek legal advice. You may have a defense if there was a reasonable reason for you being unable to follow the instruction. So what to do if your family receive directions under the Act? If you or your family are directed to do something using the emergency powers, you can get legal advice through Justice Connect. So there you go. This is for the jurisdiction of Victoria. It varies depending on state. So, what do you think, everyone? These restrictions in place for 12 months. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I will see you all next time.